To save Jiayong Tang, I stood against the entire school. I severed ties with my childhood sweetheart, but later I was betrayed by Jiayong Tang. Sinking to the bottom of the sea, my bones never to be found. My sweetheart lost a leg trying to save me. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I saved Jiayong Tang. The loan sharks came to the school for the first time, and Jiayong Tang was caught at the school gate, forced to kneel on a crowded street. The students consciously walked around them, creating a clear space in front of the crowded school gate. The leader slapped her face several times. "Damn it, if you can't find your dad to pay back the money, I'll sell you to Myanmar." Jiayong Tang's eyes reddened, but she stubbornly said, "Even if you kill me, I can't pay back the money for that gambler. The money my dad owes from gambling has nothing to do with me. I'm just a student." Everyone avoided her after seeing this. She was already used to the coldness of human nature, but as I was about to pass her, she immediately gave me a pitiful, pleading look. I remember the day we first met. She looked at me with the same eyes, like a helpless stray cat, so I softened. As a result, I was betrayed by her and sank to the bottom of the river, my body incomplete. This time, I only have coldness in my eyes. If I let her weave her own cocoon and taste her own bitter fruit, my name, Lin Young, should be spelled backward. But she suddenly called out to me, "Lin Young, didn't you say the teacher just called me?" I turned my head and met her helpless gaze. A punk from our class passed by, whistling at us with a mocking expression. "Oh, is our academic superstar saving the damsel in distress again?" A hint of embarrassment flashed in my eyes. For 3 years of high school, I had been at odds with the entire school to help Jiayong Tang. Now, in their eyes, I am the same as Jiayong Tang. Jiayong Tang was sure that this bookworm wouldn't argue, but this time I replied, "What do you mean? You're mistaken. The teacher called me. If I save her again this time, I deserve it." After hearing my answer, the man beside her kicked her shoulder. I vaguely heard her bones creak. "Damn it, you little bitch. Dare to lie to me? You haven't even grown your hair, and you want to play me? I'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget." The next second, Jiayong Tang crawled on the ground like a dog. The man stepped on her back, leaving a footprint on her school uniform. "If you try to play tricks again, I'll tie you up and throw you into the river." Hearing these words, my body stiffened. Jiayong Tang's tears slid down her cheeks, her helpless gaze looking at me. In my previous life, those people threatened her in the same way, but she told me that was just a threat. They wouldn't dare to commit murder, as that would change the nature of debt collection. But the first time I saved her, my fingers were broken. The second time I saved her, my kneecap was shattered. The third time, I was tied with stones and thrown into the river. Guozhao had already tried to stop me, but at that time I was blinded by infatuation. Not only did I not listen, but I also got angry with her for not helping classmates. The school bell pulled me back to my thoughts. The teacher saw that someone was missing from the classroom, and a classmate explained that the debt collectors had come. With just one sentence, the teacher revealed an understanding expression. She immediately called security. It wasn't tacit understanding, but that such things had happened too many times in 3 years. The security guards arrived at the door, and the former group finally stopped. Jiayong Tang also returned to the classroom, but for me, it was another beginning. Because Jiayong Tang was my desk mate on the first day of high school, the loan sharks came to the school, and no one dared to be her desk mate. In the end, only I stood up. The gears of fate began to turn from that moment on. A few minutes after class started, Guozhao and her gang of punk friends arrived late. Muscles were clearly defined yet aesthetically pleasing on the arm, holding the basketball. The sunlight shone on her, and I became lost in a daze. Jiayong Tang beside me barely managed to stop crying, and said with a wrong tone, "If only I could be like Guozhao, then no one would bully me." I clicked my tongue impatiently, lowering my head. I opened my book. In my past life, when I heard her belittling herself like this, I would have comforted her, saying that everyone has their own strengths. Now, I said with contempt, "Yeah, you're right. Guozhao is definitely different from other girls." As soon as I finished speaking, the tears she had struggled to hold back burst forth. What does my father's gambling debt have to do with me? I also want to live as freely as Guozhao. You were born into happy families, but what about me? I only have myself. It's not my fault. How can you say that to me? You know how much I envy her. I thought you were different from them. That's why you were willing to be my desk mate. Before she could finish, I frowned and raised my hand directly. Before the teacher called on me, I stood up neatly and said, "Teacher, there are only days left until the college entrance examination, and my desk mate has been talking to me about things unrelated to learning during class. I request to change seats." As soon as I said this, the voices in the class that were just discussing Jiayong Tang fell silent. Jiayong Tang's face was full of hurt. Everyone looked at me with a hint of surprise, especially Guozhao. For the previous 3 years of high school, I had done everything I could to improve Jiayong Tang's grades, taking 2 sets of notes in class and tutoring her after school, even cheating on exams to help her get scholarships. I broke too many of my own boundaries for Jiayong Tang, even abandoning my childhood sweetheart. At this moment, Guozhao narrowed her eyes, a playful smile in her gaze, because the only empty seat in the entire classroom was next to her. No one dared to sit with her. The teacher cleared his throat twice, somewhat dissatisfied. This student. The teacher also saw what happened in the hallway just now. It's normal for students to help each other. The teacher knows you love to study, but you can't forget the virtues of being a person just because of studying. At these words, I frowned tightly. The surrounding students also began to criticize my ruthlessness. Yeah, when we were assigned seats, he was the only one willing to sit with that jinx, and now that trouble comes. He says he wants to change seats. Is he even a man? The speaker was a hooligan in the class who talked about brotherhood all day long. I looked at him with cold eyes. Perhaps he hadn't seen me change my expression before. He was a little stunned. Every one of these people who are now criticizing me was an accomplice in my death in my previous life. They were unwilling to take the risk themselves, and I bore it for them for 3 years. Now that I'm unwilling to help, they're turning around and biting me. Guozhao slammed her desk hard at this moment. What are you arguing about? Aren't you going to class? She's holding up other people's studies. Is that justified? If you want to cry, go outside and cry. This is a place for studying. After saying this righteous speech, she impatiently laid down on the desk and started sleeping. Jiayong Tang was so frightened that she lost her words. The teacher also started teaching again. I finally gained temporary peace, but after class, when the teacher went out, Jiayong Tang started pulling on my uniform, her face full of grievance. "I'm sorry, you're my only friend here, so I can only tell you these things. I didn't mean to disturb your studies, don't misunderstand." I frowned and looked at her hand grabbing my sleeve with displeasure, as if trying to drag me and her into the endless abyss together. Seeing my unfriendly gaze, she loosened her grip. I yanked my uniform back. She murmured, "I probably won't be able to come to school for the next few days. Can you tutor me?" No. I didn't want to say another word to her. Her face shifted from surprise to utter shock. In my past life, I spent 3 days tutoring her, and I practically heard the entirety of her miserable early life. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have pitied her to the point of dying in her place. After declining, I stood up straight and walked toward Guozhao, who was sleeping. I gently tapped on her desk. The noise of the class during break time stopped because of this sound, and everyone gasped and stared at me in a daze. It wasn't their fault they were surprised. Guozhao was simply too outrageous at school. Even spoiled brat wouldn't be an exaggeration. Her sweet dream was interrupted by me, and a murderous gaze landed on my face. Recognizing me, she suppressed her anger. A smile tugged at the corner of my lips. "I'll tutor you for these 3 days." Everyone in the class looked astonished, betting on how many seconds it would take for Guozhao to burst into a curse, but seconds later, she suddenly smiled. "Okay." Immediately, I heard countless expressions of disbelief. They looked at me with ghostly expressions. The last person who woke Guozhao up in class had been beaten up and sent to the class next door. After the last 2 classes of our senior year, I stood at the classroom door waiting for her. Jiayong Tang, however, walked up to me, looking wronged. "Lin Young, I'm sorry, don't overthink it. I was just too sensitive today. I didn't mean anything by it. My family isn't well off, and I'm afraid of delaying my studies. All my hope is in the college entrance exam. If I don't do well, my life is over." I looked at her coldly. I thought to myself, if I help you this time, I'm the one who's finished. Seeing my impatience, her eyes turned red, and she could only turn and leave, looking back at me with every step. Guozhao slowly dawdled for minutes before walking towards me. Like in my previous life, we were clearly the same age, but it was like we had a generation gap. Back then, I thought we weren't on the same path, but now I feel like this kind of complementary relationship is just right. As we approached the school entrance, we ran into the loan sharks blocking Jiayongtang. Probably because I didn't pay off Jiayongtang's debt this time, they were unwilling to give up. Seeing my figure appear, Jiayongtang immediately pointed at me. Her face was twice as swollen as it had been at noon. From a distance of a dozen meters, I faintly heard her. That's my friend. His family is very rich. You have to believe me. I will definitely pay the money back. If you don't believe me, ask him. So, a group of tattooed men walked towards me. Guozhao, standing beside me, suddenly shouted, "Old Wang, were you watching there? Come over here and help." Then dozens of tall, over foot-tall PE students blocking the school gate walked over with laughter. The scene had a bit of a young and dangerous vibe. The loan sharks dropped Jiayongtang and ran when they saw the situation. She trembled as she walked up to me, tears streaming down her face. "Lin Young, thank you. If it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't have survived today." After saying that, she squatted down and hugged her legs, her whole body trembling with fear. "Please, I have nowhere else to go. They know my home address. If they didn't get the money today, they will definitely come looking for me tonight. Can you take me in, just for days? After the college entrance exam, I definitely won't be a burden to you." Looking at her pitiable state, just like in my previous life, I sneered. Turning my head, I cried to Guozhao, "Today, thanks to you. Otherwise they would definitely have beaten me up, and now those desperados know my information too. They definitely won't let me go. Please protect me for these 2 days. You know my parents are abroad." She was startled by my sudden change of face for a moment, then raised one eyebrow, smiling. She said, "Sure. Anyway, I'm the only one at home. You guys can come and live together." After saying that, she turned and left indifferently. I looked at her back, a smile I couldn't hide on my lips. She always seemed to have a big heart, never harboring grudges, like Jiayongtang. In my past life, I accidentally ran into Jiayongtang being cornered by debt collectors several times over 3 years, helping her repay nearly million yuan in total. Initially, Guozhao tried to stop me, but back then, I accused her of being corrupted by those thugs, becoming so vicious. As a result, we didn't exchange a single word throughout our 3 years of high school, until I tied stones to myself and sank into the river. She personally led the police in searching for me all night, and then, following footprints, found their hideout. While stalling for time for the police to arrive, a bullet struck her leg. Guozhao's parents, like mine, were busy developing overseas markets. They were away from home for most of the year, but every time they came back, they would insist on us eating together, constantly reminding us to help each other out while we were in the country. In my past life, I was the one who betrayed that promise first. This time, I won't let it happen again. On the way back, Jiayongtang looked at Guozhao's car, her eyes filled with astonishment and envy. I didn't miss the fleeting glimpse of jealousy. These emotions completely erupted when she saw Guozhao's villa. I saw her quickly type a message on her phone and send it. I turned my head in the opposite direction from her, but I could see it clearly in the reflection of my eyes. She sent Guozhao's address to the loan sharks. After eating late-night snacks, Jiayongtang looked around Guozhao's house, hesitant to speak. "Guozhao, your family is really rich. Your parents must be very good to you, unlike me. I've always dreamed of becoming someone like you. Maybe then I wouldn't be bullied." I lowered my head to organize Guozhao's test papers, not even bothering to look up. She'll never understand the difference between her and Guozhao. In this lifetime, who knew her next sentence would shift to me? I know Lin Young must be under a lot of pressure these days because of the upcoming college entrance exams. I won't blame you for what happened today. After all, you're my only friend. If it weren't for you these past 3 years, I'm afraid I would have been killed by them on the day I got into high school. Once I get into college and get a job, I'll definitely pay you back." I sneered. In my past life, I treated her as a friend and paid off her debts, but she treated me like an idiot for compensation money. To be her friend, you have to have a strong destiny. I helped you before out of kindness, not because it was my obligation. Those words choked her, tears welling up in her eyes, and she ran out the door. Guozhao gave me a look as if she'd seen a ghost. I smiled indifferently, continuing to look down at her test papers. If I chased after her now, wouldn't I be ruining Jiayongtang's plans? Anyway, She'll call me for help herself in a little while. Sure enough, after I watched Guo Zhao write a few problems, Jia Yongtang's call appeared on the phone screen. I impatiently pressed the speakerphone. Lin Young, those people are blocking me again. Please come save me. They seem serious this time. As soon as she finished speaking, a man on the other end grabbed the phone. He yelled at me angrily. If you can't pay back, yuan today, just wait for us to break this woman's leg. With that, the call was hung up. Guo Zhao was even more anxious than I was. I changed my shoes, and she was already holding a baseball bat, ready to rush out. When we arrived, the barbecue stand where Jia Yongtang worked part-time had already been smashed by the loan sharks. The boss was squatting on the side, covering a CM gash on his head. Today, the leader of the guys from school grabbed Jia Yongtang's long hair, causing her face to twist in pain. Seeing me arrive, he cursed. You came alone? Where's the damn money? I raised my eyebrows and suddenly smiled. I didn't just come alone, I came after calling the police. Hearing that I called the police, his face instantly darkened. His murderous gaze turned towards Jia Yongtang on the ground. He wanted to question her, but he couldn't say anything because we were there. Jia Yongtang's face was deathly pale, so frightened she barely resembled herself. The man turned and slapped Jia Yongtang across the face. Didn't I tell you not to call the police? You're messing with me. Calling the police is an extra 100,000. You dare threaten me with the police? Do you really think this is my first day collecting debts? As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of police sirens came from the distance, and the anger on the man's face immediately turned ashen. Ignoring Jia Yongtang kneeling on the ground, he took off running. I leisurely sat down, and she crawled on her knees to me from meters away. Lin Young, didn't we agree not to call the police? Don't you know these people? If you call the police, they'll be even more reckless next time. I really don't want to die. I didn't want to have a father like that either. She broke down in tears, covering her head. Of course, I didn't call the police. The evidence I had on hand wasn't enough at all. After being reborn, I only printed out the million I repaid for Jia Yongtang, but I couldn't prove that those loan sharks were illegally collecting debts. I sent a message telling the shop owner in the distance to turn off the loudspeakers. Only when Jia Yongtang heard the police sirens disappear did she regain her composure. High school, for almost 3 years, it was always the same drama. She would call me saying she was being cornered. I would take the money and exchange it for her safety. One act of compromise after another only fueled her ambition. In the end, she actually colluded with the loan sharks to put on a show. Only after I died and floated in the air did I realize that she had replaced the fake prop stone with a real one. This allowed her to both get my compensation money and solve the problem of being harassed by debt collectors. But she never thought that making a deal with the devil would ultimately backfire. Guo Zhao had already prepared to fight before she came, and at the sight of the situation, she spat out her chewing gum. What the hell is this? That's it. Just as useless as it was 3 years ago when we first entered high school. Guo Zhao and I were very close. We went home together after school, and so we encountered Jia Yongtang being cornered for the first time. Maybe it was just my imagination, but her pleading gaze was fixed on me. Her eyes were red like a frightened rabbit. Guo Zhao initially shouted at them, but seeing that they didn't react, she charged forward. The loan sharks never expected that Guo Zhao, a skinny girl, had been practicing boxing for years and was a city champion. She beat them to a pulp, but by the time she returned victorious, I was already hugging the emotionally distraught Jia Yongtang in the hospital. That was the first time we didn't go home together after school. I never thought that one separation would last for 3 years. Guo Zhao and I took the sobbing Jia Yongtang back with us, but in the car, she collapsed, crying on my lap. Why? Why does God treat me this way? It's not my fault. Why do I have to bear this burden? She cried all the way, but from my perspective, I didn't see a single tear. I frowned, my eyes filled with impatience and a desire to kill. Seeing that neither of us reacted, she looked up in surprise, so I simply closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. No one paid attention to her, and she recovered from her emotions quickly. After arriving at Guo Zhao's house, she made an excuse to clear her head and went to the villa's back garden alone. I left Guo Zhao with a few small assignments to distract her and went to the security room to turn on the surveillance. Jia Yongtang didn't know how good the security was around Guo Zhao's villa, and she even chose a corner that she thought was secluded to make a phone call. Lin Young must be going crazy today. He didn't even bring money. There must be some misunderstanding. He's already repaid so much for me before, just wait a little longer. I know him better than his own mother. He's not the kind of heartless person. There must be some reason why he didn't give the money this time. The other person's voice seemed impatient, and Jiayong Tang's tone became agitated. Hey, didn't we agree to cooperate? You paid off my gambling debts before, that's true, but his family is so rich. Don't you want to get more out of him? Once I marry him, we'll split the million repayment slash. Hearing this, I clenched my fist, my knuckles turning white from the force. The veins bulged and throbbed. In my previous life, until the very last moment before my death, I thought it was because I hadn't tried hard enough. I was even worried that they would make things difficult for Jiayong Tang after I sank to the bottom of the river. I never expected this. I took 2 deep breaths to calm myself down, and then I heard Jiayong Tang come up with a new idea. How about this? You guys don't show up for the time being. I'll say you were arrested after someone reported you to the police. Later, wait for my signal. I'll find a way to make him unable to leave me. Then you'll have even bigger leverage when you ask for money. Hearing this, there was no need for me to stay any longer. Growing up in a wealthy family, I was far from understanding the darkness of human nature. Guozhao was right. I walked into the living room, which was empty. Guozhao was in the study doing practice problems. Even she, who never used to study, seemed like a different person today. It was convenient for me to open the refrigerator in frustration and take out an ice-cold beer. I used to be a teetotaler, but now it seemed that only the alcohol entering my mouth could lessen the fire in my heart. While my stomach burned, the other places wouldn't feel so bad. Jiayong Tang came in, bouncing with joy, looking completely without the worried expression she had when she was being pressured by debt collectors. I glanced at her and asked politely, "Why are you so happy?" She seemed unable to contain herself, announcing everywhere. "The police station just called me and said that the loan sharks have been arrested. This time, they've really messed with the wrong people." As soon as she finished speaking, Guozhao, who had finished her practice problems upstairs, also came down. "Is that so? Then we don't have to do anything ourselves. Congratulations." She naturally took the remaining half-can of beer from my hand and drank it all in one gulp. I was so thirsty. Auntie is on vacation, and I forgot to order water. Hearing this, Jiayong Tang's eyes instantly lit up as if she had finally found an opportunity. And he's on vacation anyway. I don't have anywhere to go recently. As a thank you, how about I take care of you these next few days? After speaking, she smiled gently, her gaze falling on my face. Lin Young has helped me so much these past 3 years, like a real family. Others don't even know his preferences. Her ambiguous words deliberately created an extremely ambiguous atmosphere, but I stared blankly at the beer can in my hand, and, without raising my head, I said, "Okay, then I'll trouble you." She seemed not to expect me to really agree. A crack appeared in Jiayong Tang's gentle expression. Before, even tasks like getting water at school were done by me, and I also took her homework for her. Because of the other students' open and covert animosity, I always took extra care of her. In the end, I even gave my own life. Now that she was willing to atone, I couldn't very well refuse. I pretended not to notice her surprise, touching my stomach and wondering, "What's going on? I seem a little hungry." "Guozhao, are you hungry? Was it too tiring rushing to the barbecue stall earlier?" Guozhao was stunned by my sudden change of address and replied blankly, "Huh." I immediately turned to look at Jiayong Tang. Guozhao said she's hungry too. Jiayong Tang immediately put on a gentle and caring expression. "Then I'll go to the kitchen and see what I can make." As soon as she turned to leave, I immediately contacted the hotel and booked dinner. An hour later, Jiayong Tang brought the meal she had made to the table. I had already finished grading Guozhao's practice paper. I got up, smiled, and took a bite with my chopsticks. Before it even entered my mouth, I immediately gagged. "No, I'm allergic to this, I can't eat it." In Jiayong Tang's astonished gaze, I turned my head and said, "I'm really sorry. I have to disappoint you. I forgot to tell you that I can only eat food from 5-star hotels. Anything else that's not clean makes me throw up and have diarrhea." I suddenly slapped my thigh. How could I forget that you need to eat too? What was I thinking? Maybe the pressure of the college entrance exam is getting to me. You already made food for yourself, so we'll just go out to eat. Sorry to bother you to clean up after you're done. With that, I grabbed Guozhao from the sofa and walked out the door, leaving Jiayong Tang standing there still holding the spatula, her face even greener than the vegetables in the plate. Once outside, Guozhao yanked her hand away from mine, looking at me with a ghostly expression. Lin Young, are you okay? Are you possessed? That's the little sweetheart you've been protecting for years. The last sentence was said with obvious sarcasm. I looked around to hide my embarrassment, then moved closer to her again. Don't go too far away from me. What if the loan sharks find me and beat me up? I'm so weak, I can't do it without you. Maybe the fearful expression on my face was too convincing, because she chuckled. Didn't Jiayong Tang say they caught them all? Who knows with those things? Besides, it's a gang. It's not just one person acting alone. I blinked in disagreement, and she stared at me blankly for a moment, then blushed when she realized what was happening. The hotel was close to her house, and we walked for km under the dim streetlights. Looking at the falling leaves, I suddenly wished this road had no end, but reality never quite lives up to expectations. I tried my best to slow down along the way, risking being called a weakling by her, but we still arrived at the hotel entrance. As soon as we sat down, the dishes were already served. Guo Zhao raised an eyebrow, her eyes filled with a hint of amusement. The last time we ate out together was 3 years ago for the middle school entrance exam. It's a good thing you didn't order any hot dishes in the middle of summer, otherwise, at your pace, they would have been cold by now. Although Guo Zhao kept attacking me verbally during the meal, I felt a surge of sweetness in my heart. She has a sharp tongue, but a soft heart. I should have known that long ago. It was already dark when we returned. Jiayong Tang had cleaned the entire 3-story house by herself, collapsing on the sofa as soon as she walked in the door. A coldness flashed in my eyes as I kindly reminded her to rest early. Don't forget about the college entrance exam while doing housework. Hearing my long-lost concern, the tired look on her face immediately turned into a smile. How ironic. In my previous life, I offered her my whole heart, and she trampled me into the dust. After being reborn, I ignored her completely, and she convinced herself to act. 4 days in a row, I made her cook all sorts of meals in different ways, and then I would take Guo Zhao out to eat. The colder I was to Jiayong Tang, the more eager she seemed to be. Soon, the day of the college entrance exam arrived. Guo Zhao's thug friend happened to be assigned to the same classroom as Jiayong Tang, but after the 2 days of the exam were over, he came over to talk to Guo Zhao and said in confusion that he hadn't seen Jiayong Tang throughout the entire exam. Hearing this, Guo Zhao looked at me with a puzzled expression. I chuckled and bought 2 ice cream cones, stuffing them into her hands. I remembered she had liked these snacks 3 years ago. Sure enough, with the ice cream cones in her hand, she didn't bother asking anything and just buried her head and started eating. The thug friend, feeling like he was interrupting, left directly. As expected, Jiayong Tang was already waiting at home when we returned. Of course, I understood that she couldn't wait any longer. The college entrance exam was never her goal, my money was. In the past, I also felt it was unfair. Why should she be responsible for the money her father owed? But now, I only feel the pitiful must have something hateful. Everything is predetermined for a reason. Jiayong Tang saw us enter and quickly put down her phone, smiling. You're back. The questions today were so hard, I almost couldn't finish them. If it weren't for Lin Young tutoring me before, I probably wouldn't have passed. If I hadn't sent people to follow her to that riverbank from her past life, I would definitely have been fooled by her exquisite acting. Guo Zhao's confused gaze darted back and forth between me and Jiayong Tang, but with our years of understanding, she ultimately didn't ask. Her trust in me is always unconditional. Jiayong Tang actually took my arm. I became the only student in the village to pass the college entrance exam, and the village chief gave me a lot of bonus money. Let me treat you to a trip. I bent down to change my shoes, agreeing verbally, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. The village chief? The predatory lending village. Guo Zhao didn't say anything and turned to go upstairs, only leaving a sentence. Call me if there are any activities, I'll be home. According to the people I sent to follow Jiayong Tang, she didn't take the college entrance exam, but instead went to find the people who collect predatory loans to discuss countermeasures. That's how she planned this so-called graduation trip. As for the bonus money she mentioned, it was all borrowed in predatory loans. The next day, the 3 of us had already packed our luggage. I spent 1 million repaying loans for her in the past 3 years, so I can't go easy this time. How about we go do some extreme sports? I suggested boldly. Looking at Guozhao's listless expression, sure enough, her dim eyes lit up instantly when she heard that. Jiayong Tang opened her mouth to say something, but I interrupted her. Once we're in college and then working, there will be fewer opportunities to indulge like this. No sooner said than done. I didn't wait for her to object and dragged Guozhao out the door. Using her money to chase my own girlfriend, what's not to like? Jiayong Tang never expected that I, who rarely spoke, would take the initiative to offer an opinion this time, completely disrupting her amusement park flotation plan. Standing on the cliff for skydiving, her face was pale, but she still gritted her teeth and said, "It's okay, you can go if you want. I'm just a little afraid of heights. I might jump with Lin Young later." After speaking, she turned her gaze to me, a blush quickly spreading across her face. "Since you've already said you're scared, then Guozhao and I will do a demonstration first." With that, I had the staff tie the two of us together with safety ropes. Guozhao was in front of me, and the wind blew her hair into my face. She pouted and said, "Are you going to be okay? Don't pass out later." The corners of my lips curled up in a wicked smile. I had a plan in mind. The next second, I led her straight off the cliff. A strong sense of weightlessness came over me, and my heart was pounding wildly. She screamed excitedly. I no longer hid it and laughed out loud, reaching out to hold her waist. The wind whistled past our ears, and I shouted loudly, "I'm so scared. Guozhao, hold on to me." Her retort immediately rang out, almost a roar. "Lin Young, you're so useless. I have to protect you even when you're an adult." Having said that, she still tightened her grip on my hand. In the air, I almost forgot, if she hadn't mentioned it, when I was a child I was weak and was bullied by children of the same age as soon as I started school. If she hadn't rushed out to save me, I probably wouldn't be alive now. At that time, 80-year-old Guozhao looked at me with a very serious expression. "I'm going to learn boxing in the future, and when I'm good at it, I'll protect you for the rest of my life." Lost in memories, I unconsciously curled my lips, even forgetting to pull the parachute. At the moment of landing, Guozhao slapped my back hard, causing my face to contort in pain. "Are you looking for death? Don't you know to open the umbrella? Stay away from me if you want to die." She turned around angrily after saying that. Jiayong Tang innocently approached and said weakly, "Is it our turn, Lin Young?" The corners of my mouth, which had just curved up, instantly fell. I immediately pretended to vomit. "No, I have a fear of heights." Saying that, I walked shakily to Guozhao and leaned weakly on her shoulder. I said helplessly, "Sorry, Jiayong Tang, I really can't take it. If it wasn't for this extreme sport, I wouldn't have known I have a fear of heights. How about you jump with the staff first? We'll go diving tomorrow. That should be okay." After saying that, I gave her a weak smile. Her body swayed, and she almost couldn't stand. The price of the parachute jump was equivalent to her tuition and living expenses for a year, especially since she borrowed the money with high interest. But looking at my pale face, a hint of unwillingness flashed in her eyes, but she could only turn her head and smile, asking the staff to accompany her. So, while she was parachuting, I directly dragged Guozhao to the convenience store at the adjacent scenic spot. We enjoyed the air conditioning and ate ice cream. Guozhao looked at my quickly recovering complexion in surprise. "You're not dizzy anymore? Don't want to throw up?" I raised one eyebrow and smiled. "Dizzy from what?" "I might be dizzy from beauty. You're too beautiful." She rolled her eyes in a very obvious way. That night, we took a plane directly to the place where we would go diving. We slept on the plane and woke up just as we landed. The sea has always been a place I longed for, but unfortunately, I never had the chance to see it in my previous life before I died. Now facing the boundless blue, it seemed that my mood had also broadened a lot. Guozhao excitedly rushed into the sea. I ran up and grabbed her, who was about to swim naked without any safety equipment. "Put on your equipment before you go down." The fear of being buried at the bottom of the river in my previous life makes me love and fear the unknown ocean now. She rolled her eyes again. "You're a big boy, but you're really timid." Jiayong Tang walked over slowly when she saw this, her expression filled with grievance. "Lin Young, can you go into the sea with me? Can we hold hands? I'm very afraid of the water." My eyes darkened, and I suppressed the hatred in my heart. "Okay, let's go into the water together." Once Guozhao put on her diving suit, she rushed out like a wild horse. The coach couldn't stop her. I was the last one to go into the water. Jiayong Tang insisted on staying by my side, but I cramped after diving only meters, so I started thrashing wildly in the water. The frantic movements made it impossible for Jiayong Tang to help. Aimed at Guozhao's direction, I paddled for a long time with my hands and feet. She finally noticed me. Looking at the figure swimming over, a smile flashed in my eyes. I deliberately pulled out the oxygen tube while struggling. Guozhao's little face turned pale with fright, and she used all her strength to drag me up, giving me artificial respiration for a long time. I finally woke up slowly after 5 minutes. Who knew Guozhao would slap me on the chest? The force was so great that I coughed for a long time. Why are you diving if you can't swim? Are you idle? She scolded me for a long time, and her eyes turned red as she spoke. When Jiayong Tang swam up, Guozhao and I were already drinking coconut juice. She could only express her concern awkwardly and anxiously, but the tone was obviously more anxious. In the following days, we went rock climbing. As a result, I accidentally fell while rock climbing and landed directly in Guozhao's arms. After a series of coincidental events, the day for the college entrance exam results finally arrived. As soon as our plane landed, Jiayong Tang said she was going to the village to tell everyone the good news. She felt that she had done well after finishing the exam. She said that there was a custom in their village that because there were few college students, every student who finished the college entrance exam had to gather together to check their results. I was too lazy to bother figuring out if what she said was true. I had just finished checking my grades when I received the loan shark's call. The expected key university. Guozhao also got into the sports academy next door. The man on the phone threatened impatiently. You have to come up with million, or I'll tear her apart right now. I curled the corner of my lips on my end of the line. After waiting so long, they finally couldn't hold back any longer. It seemed Jiayong Tang was out of bargaining chips. Don't hurt her. I'll give you anything you want. As I spoke, I glanced at Guozhao, but she didn't seem worried at all, as if she had expected this outcome long ago. I never doubted my childhood friend's intelligence. After all, she had seen through Jiayong Tang's scheme in the previous life with just one glance. At this moment, I pretended to be scared and nervous, stalling the criminals while unlocking Guozhao's phone with my fingerprint and dialed the police. Then, while waiting for the police to arrive at the scene, I leisurely munched on a slice of watermelon. I let Guozhao play games in the living room while I went out alone. Even with everything so certain this time, I couldn't let her be in any danger. The location was still the riverbank from my previous life. Stepping onto this place again filled me with complex emotions. The leading man was holding a dagger against Jiayong Tang's neck so forcefully that blood beads were already seeping out. He questioned sternly, "Where's the million? If you don't give me the money, I'll push her in right now." Jiayong Tang in his hands was pale, her eyes red, her face soaked with tears. She looked at me pitifully, just like the first time we met, forming the words with her mouth. Don't come save me. You'll die." I have to admit, she's really good at acting. Even after being reborn, I couldn't see a trace of flaw. Before I could reply, the sound of police sirens echoed around. The man and Jiayong Tang's expressions changed drastically at the same time. Their panic was exactly the same. They didn't look like a kidnapper and hostage, but more like accomplices. The man, not caring about Jiayong Tang in his arms, directly pointed the knife at me. "You little brat, you dare to call the police." My face was full of innocence, pretending to know nothing as I shook my head frantically, but my gaze was fixed on Jiayong Tang. "Didn't you tell me to call the police and then threaten him to spit out the million he took before? Hang in there, the police are coming soon. This time we can definitely solve everything and you won't be harassed anymore. You can finally live the normal life you've always envied." As soon as those words were spoken, Jiayong Tang instantly turned deathly pale. This time it was a true blood-curdling white. She stared wide-eyed at the man about to explode beside her, shaking her head frantically. This time, she wasn't even afraid of him hurting her, but the kidnapper revealed murderous intent in his eyes for the first time, kicking Jiayong Tang to the edge of the river. Another strong push, and she would roll into the undercurrent, lost without a trace, just like I did in my previous life. "You damn bitch, you dare to scheme against me? You wait. I won't let you go even if I die." After saying that, He hurriedly turned around to escape. I glanced at the direction he left in, just like in my previous life. I had already told the police on the phone to ambush him there. Only then did I slowly walk towards the riverbank. Sure enough, before a minute had passed, the man returned. His face was whiter than a floating corpse, his back drenched with sweat. He was terrified. Without saying a word, he rushed to Jiayong Tang's side and stabbed the knife in her leg. Jiayong Tang's ropes hadn't been untied yet, and her face turned instantly pale. Bright red liquid gushed out from her delicate leg, and the man twisted the dagger forcefully. She was in so much pain that she was speechless, unable to find her voice. I can't run away, and you can't even think about living. The kidnapper squeezed out those words through gritted teeth. Now, Jiayong Tang was truly his hostage. Jiayong Tang was so shocked by the scene before her that she couldn't react and could only look at me with pleading eyes. 3 years, she had long taken for granted that no matter what, I would be her guardian. Looking at her eyes filled with tears, my heart did soften. So this time I directly pretended to be scared and fainted. If I can't defeat it, I'll avoid it. When I opened my eyes again, I was already in a police car. By the time I got to the station, they had already taken half of the statements. The loan shark collector took out Jiayong Tang's chat history with him to defend himself. After investigating for a long time, the police confirmed that it was a staged play by the two of them, but they didn't expect that a staged play could actually result in a stabbing, and the police looked at the papers in their hands speechless. But the only thing that was certain was that I was just an innocent victim. You could even say I was the only sucker in the loan sharking incident. The policeman walked towards me with a notebook, rubbing his temples wearily, quite troubled by the students these days. He finally remembered there was another person, and when his eyes turned to me, I tearfully took out screenshots of the money I had transferred to Jiayong Tang over the past 3 years to repay the debt. Officer, can you help me get it back? Jiayong Tang naturally had no money to repay. The money had gone into the loan shark collector's pocket and had long been relent as a loan. You'd be lucky to find it. So the policeman patted me on the shoulder and said they would do their best to recover it. Then he let me go home. Half of the thing that was weighing on my heart was resolved. My steps felt lighter. This time Jiayong Tang had completely fallen out with the desperate loan shark collector. Even if she got out of the police station, she wouldn't have a good life. Without my and Guozhao's help, she would probably have to live like a rat in a gutter for the rest of her life, constantly evading debts, just like her gambling father. The wheels of fate were indeed turning. She had finally grown into the very person she used to despise the most. On the way back, I bought Guozhao her favorite ice cream cone. I opened the door, and a familiar figure jumped into my arms. Why were you gone so long? I thought you had become Jiayong Tang's hostage. I chuckled and patted her back. No, never again. For the rest of my life, I'll only be your hostage. She raised her eyebrows at my words. A little weakling like you is indeed only fit to be my hostage. After saying that, the corners of her mouth almost reached the back of her head as she took the ice cream cone from my hand and went upstairs without even a thank you. I remember the last time I bought her something. She was able to blush shyly and say, "Thank you, Lin Yang." I wonder if this change is good or bad. At night, I lay in bed trying to sleep, but all I could think about was her saying, "Little weakling." 3 hours later, I angrily sat up. I opened my phone and signed myself up for a summer boxing training class. A real man doesn't back down. This time, I'm taking back everything that belongs to me. I searched for a long time and finally found the best local institution. The photos showed walls full of champion certificates and trophies. I slapped my thigh. This is going to be great. Just wait 3 months and see if I don't make you fall head over heels for me. So, after paying the fee, I put down my phone and went to sleep soundly. The next morning, I sneaked out the house early, stepping into the morning sun. Life instantly filled with hope. I stepped into the boxing training institution with an incomparably surging heart. The corners of my mouth that were stretched into a smile completely froze when I saw my exclusive coach. Good heavens. I call you Grandpa, but are you really treating me like your grandson? Guozhao took off her boxing gloves, looking at me with a smile in her eyes. She raised an eyebrow as she walked over. The corners of her lips turned up. Her expression couldn't have been more disdainful. She approached me and patted me on the shoulder. How did you know I opened a boxing gym? We're all friends. You've come to support my business. I'll give you a % discount. Percent discount? Right now I want to fracture. She saw my tearful expression. Are you sure you can handle this? Her disdainful and flippant attitude stung my male pride. You kidding? Can I? So 5 hours later, the staff had to help me out the door. This morning, to avoid being discovered and thinking of secretly getting stronger, I walked over here, but I ended up being carried back by Guozhao. If I remember correctly, when I signed up last night it said the training would be 3 hours a day. Can anyone tell me why it was doubled? I weakly lay on Guozhao's back, unable to even lift my head. The summer sun shone on her, and fine beads of sweat slid down her face. My Adam's apple bobbed. She really seems to have grown up. She's not the tomboy she was when she was a kid. My height, over meters, meant my feet were dragging on the ground as she carried me. I was thinking of trying my best. A real man shouldn't be carried by his beloved woman, but as soon as I moved a little, my whole body ached like my bones were being crushed. I could only obediently let her take me home. The sweetness that surged in my heart washed away my pain. I hope this road is a little longer. But minutes later, her footsteps stopped. I struggled to lift my eyes and look. Jiayong Tang was standing meters ahead, leaning on a cane. When she saw me, she immediately limped towards us. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes. Lin Young, what happened to you? Guozhao had heard about Jiayong Tang's situation from her uncle at the police station and didn't want to give her even a single glance at this moment, let alone explain my situation to her. She simply tilted her head and ignored her. I frowned at her. She thought I was frowning in pain. Lin Young, it's so good. I thought I would never see you again in this lifetime. She choked with sobs on the busy street. Did those people come to retaliate against you? Don't be afraid. I'll protect you from now on. You took care of me for 3 years. Now it's time to switch back. Seeing me lower my head and say nothing, she actually defended herself. Don't listen to those social parasites. I never colluded with them. They just forged chat logs to exonerate themselves. As she spoke, she began to sob convulsively. You know better than anyone how badly I was bullied during these 3 years. You're the only one in the world who understands me. If you misunderstand me like they do, then I might as well die. Then just go die. Of course, I didn't say that out loud, because looking at her flickering eyes, it was clear she had a new plan. This time, I didn't plan to crush her with a single blow either. The evidence simply wasn't enough. But getting them to turn against each other had been achieved, so I forced a smile. Yeah, probably their accomplices. They actually found me. If it weren't for Guozhao, you'd only be able to find me in the hospital now. Before my rebirth, I couldn't imagine that I could one day lie without changing my expression or skipping a beat. Before, all my emotions were written on my face. Kindness, too, and affection. Guozhao always said I was like a child who hadn't grown up, but I think it's a blessing for a person to maintain their innocence for a lifetime. I never thought my best quality would be ruined by Jiayong Tang. She molded a completely new me. This time, I'll let her understand herself. Back at the villa, Jiayong Tang's attitude towards me was even more tenacious. Regardless of her limping leg, she insisted on going to the kitchen to cook for me. Your injuries are all because of me. I can't let myself off the hook if I don't take care of you. A good person like you shouldn't be implicated by me. See, she knew all along. The people who hurt you know better than anyone that you're innocent, but they still choose to hurt you. I lay in bed after taking a shower and nodded weakly. Seeing that my attitude towards her hadn't been affected by the kidnapping, she visibly breathed a sigh of relief. Her face lit up with excitement. You're hurt. I'll protect you from now on. You don't have to feel burdened at all. This is what I should do. With that, she immediately turned and left. The thick bandages wrapped around her leg were soaked through with bright red blood. She didn't seem to feel it at all. I clearly saw everything that day of the kidnapping. The knife was twisted a full circle in her leg. The blade was very long. Jiayong Tang would probably never be able to leave her crutches for the rest of her life, but she didn't seem to have a trace of regret or pain. The coldness in my eyes deepened. To achieve her goals, she didn't even care about her own leg. No wonder she so casually abandoned my life and my past life. She probably thought I was a stumbling block on her path to success. Hearing the sound of the door closing, I picked up the tablet next to me. I opened the surveillance video in that hidden corner. Because the security guards of this area didn't patrol this spot, the Guo family strengthened the surveillance equipment. The resolution was so high that you could almost see Jiayong Tang's individual hairs. Her face was filled with joy as she made a phone call. but the words that came out her mouth froze me. Dad, I returned to the villa. My previous judgment was wrong. It seems he does like the Guizhou type. He doesn't like girls who pretend to be weak. The fingers holding the tablet were white with pressure. I could almost hear my own heartbeat in this huge bedroom. From the first time I met Jiayong Tang, she said that her father was a gambler who owed debts and ran away, abandoning her. I sympathized with her background so much that I wanted my parents to come back from abroad and adopt her. I put all the good things in my house in front of her. First, I stood against the whole school for her. I suddenly remember a girl in the school and high school who said she went to the same junior high school as Jiayong Tang. She didn't seem innocent at all. On the surface, she was the real school bully in junior high. All the students trembled when they heard her name because her father was involved with the underworld. He organized a group of unemployed people to illegally lend money privately. The interest was sky high. It was just because their place was too small, the news couldn't get out. If she hadn't been admitted to the same high school as us, I probably wouldn't have heard these things at all. I still remember the girl's terrified eyes when she spoke. She said that only 2 people from their junior high school were admitted here, but the other girl wasn't Jiayong Tang at all. The day the admission notices were delivered after the results came out, that girl died mysteriously. Later, on the day of enrollment, she saw Jiayong Tang. Luckily, Jiayong Tang didn't recognize her. If she hadn't seen Jiayong Tang suddenly change her personality in high school, she wouldn't have come to warn me. But at that time, I just had a cold face because just an hour before, Jiayong Tang had been beaten to the point of vomiting blood by debt collectors in the alley at the school gate. I only said, "It's against the law to spread rumors. Don't let me hear these things again." The girl's eyes instantly turned gray. Looking at my firm appearance, she stopped talking, but in the end, she left. Looking back now, if I had believed her then, wouldn't I not have died later? Jiayong Tang and her father's phone call was still going on. This time, the two quickly came up with an even more vicious plan. I listened to it in my ears, and my facial features were twisted with anger. I had to endure the hatred and pretend not to know anything to deal with her for a day. In the evening, she proposed to go to a remote barbecue restaurant. According to the agreed plan, Jiayong Tang hadn't gone home yet, and my body had almost recovered. I copied the surveillance video of her and her father's discussion and sent it to the policeman's phone. Last time, I specifically asked for the number. Back then, I also sent him the address. After arriving at the barbecue restaurant, Jiayong Tang was obviously absent-minded. I looked at the message replied by the police officer on my phone. This restaurant has had a lot of accidents recently. There was gang activity here, several lives already lost. I remember Jiayong Tang and her father's conversation. It seemed they really had no manpower. The people who kidnapped her last time were still out there. They were certain I was buried in my studies and knew nothing about the news here, and news of gang violence, once released, would be suppressed by the government. That's why they were so bold. Jiayong Tang hurriedly ordered food, her eyes constantly darting around. I lowered my gaze, hiding the coldness in my eyes. For the plan to succeed, Jiayong Tang had deliberately worn a brightly colored dress today. Soon, several tattooed men, their faces flushed from drinking, came over from afar, staggering. They were clearly the main characters in the recent news. They were too familiar with the terrain here, always managing to escape and unscathed whenever the police came. This time, I pretended to look down at my phone, and the leading man immediately spotted Jiayong Tang sitting at the barbecue stall. Because she had lost too much blood from her injuries, her face was pale, which only added to her frail beauty. The man waved his hand, and several of his underlings immediately rushed over. Without a word, they dragged Jiayong Tang towards the small hotel upstairs. She was gagged and could only make muffled whimpers. I raised my eyes in alarm, but was stopped by a stun gun held in front of me. Jiayong Tang finally broke free from the man's grasp, and in a brief moment of freedom, she shouted at me, "Don't mind me, Lin Young. I owe you this time." Even if she hadn't said it, I wasn't planning to move. Looking at the threatening man in front of me and the tattoo on his arm, I simply sat and waited for the police to arrive. Because they had failed several times before, the police this time arrived in plain clothes. 10 minutes later, the arrogant man in front of me was pinned to the ground, his head being forcefully pressed down by a policeman. Other plainclothes officers rushed into the rooms upstairs based on my directions. Unfortunately, it was all over the moment they kicked the door open. The man inside had just pulled up his pants. Jiayong Tang limped downstairs. When she saw me, there were still tears on her face. She rushed towards me, roaring like a mad woman. Why didn't you save me, you beast? How could you not save me? She didn't finish her sentence before she was taken into the police car. This time, I presented all the evidence. How interesting. Everyone was a villain. Only I was the real victim. The matter had too much impact, and the provincial leaders arrived overnight. When they saw me, they all showed sympathetic looks. Several top leaders patted me on the shoulder in consolation. They didn't know my plan. They just thought I was injured from boxing practice, and that was why I couldn't rush to save her. They all said I was lucky, otherwise tonight would have been another murder. I nodded expressionlessly. By the time I left, it was already dawn. As I approached the villa, I saw Guozhao sitting on the steps waiting for me from afar. She was holding my favorite snacks in her hand. The moment I got out of the car, she started crying. Her shoulders were shaking. I was thinking that I trained you too hard yesterday, so I went to buy some of your favorite things to make up for it. But when I got back, you weren't home, and I couldn't reach you on your phone. Do you know how worried I was? I had never seen her so upset. My phone's battery had long been drained. I took it out and showed it to her, then hugged her even tighter. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. It's all over. She was good at moving on and quickly forgot the unpleasantness of that day. Her mind was full of how to train me even harder at the boxing gym. 3 months of summer vacation passed, and I actually made some progress. I even managed to gain some muscle. She looked at me and nodded with satisfaction. Then she remembered something. She suddenly asked, "Now that I've trained you so well, you won't go to college and attract all the freshmen, will you?" I raised an eyebrow, amused. What underclassman could withstand your fists? You've almost broken me apart already. I don't have the capacity to meet any new underclassmen. Besides, in university, I'll be the one with upperclassmen. Perhaps my improper demeanor was rare to see. She actually blushed. She mumbled something unintelligible and ran off. I laughed and shouted loudly. "What did you just say?" "I didn't hear you." She ignored me, turning and slamming her bedroom door shut. Actually, I did hear her. What she said was, "Who wants to be with you forever?" I looked at the 2 acceptance letters in my hand, and a smile crept onto my face.